Imagine a city that was built as a model of the future. Wide avenues, neat concrete apartment blocks, schools, swimming pools, a brand new amusement park waiting for its grand opening. Young families, engineers, doctors, teachers. A place designed to prove that the atomic age would be bright, modern, and safe. Now imagine that same city frozen in time. Plates still on the tables, toys on the floor, exercise books open on school desks, but no voices, no footsteps, no traffic. Only the wind, rusted swings, and the ticking of Geiger counters. This is Pripyat, and this is the story of what happens after a nuclear reactor explodes. This video is not just about the night of April 26, 1986. It's about the silence that followed, about a deserted city, an irradiated forest, and the invisible scars left on hundreds of thousands of lives. Welcome to the Chernobyl disaster, Voices from the Dead Zone. If you're ready, we're going back to the night when the sky above Chernobyl turned orange, and the future of an entire region changed forever. To understand what happened at Chernobyl, we first need to understand where we are. It's the mid-1980s. The Soviet Union is still a global superpower. Deep inside the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, about 110 kilometers north of Kiev, sits one of the pride projects of the Soviet nuclear program, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Right next to it, there's a young, thriving city built specifically for plant workers and their families, Pripyat. Pripyat was officially founded in 1970 and became a city in 1979. By 1986, around 50,000 people lived there. The average age was in the mid-20s. This was a young city, full of children, students, newlyweds, and skilled workers. It was a showcase of Soviet modernity. Apartment blocks with central heating, kindergartens and schools, a cultural palace, sports facilities, shops stocked better than many other places in the USSR, and of course the iconic amusement park with its yellow Ferris wheel, bumper cars and rides that were scheduled to open for May Day celebrations in 1986. Pripyat was designed to send a clear message. Atomic energy is the future. You are safe. You are taken care of. You are part of something powerful. A few hundred meters away, the heart of this promise was beating inside 4 nuclear reactor units. The one that would change everything was Reactor 4. It was an RBMK 1000 reactor, a graphite-moderated, water-cooled design. On paper, it was efficient and powerful. In reality, it had serious design flaws, including a dangerous behavior at low power and a control rod system that could actually increase reactivity in certain emergency situations. Those flaws, combined with human error and a broken safety culture, would turn the Chernobyl plant from a symbol of progress into a symbol of disaster. Let's move to the night of April 25th to 26th, 1986. The operators at Unit 4 are preparing a safety test. The idea seems simple. They want to know whether, in case of a power outage, the spinning momentum of the steam turbine can generate enough electricity for a short time to keep the cooling pumps running, just long enough for emergency diesel generators to start. It's a kind of brake test in the dark. The test had been attempted before, but this time, a combination of delays and poor planning pushes the reactor into a state where it should never have been operated. During the day, the test is postponed by grid controllers who need the power output. The reactor is kept running, but not in an ideal regime. When permission finally arrives late at night, the operators try to lower the power to prepare for the test. Things go wrong. The power drops far below the planned level into an unstable range. The reactor is now in a poisoned state, with xenon buildup affecting its behavior. To raise the power again, operators start withdrawing more and more control rods, the very rods that are supposed to keep the reactor safe. They are under pressure to complete the test. Procedures are bent. Some safety systems are disabled or bypassed. The reactor is now running at low power in a highly unstable configuration. Cooling water flow is high, steam voids begin to form in the core, and instead of damping the reaction, the reactor design responds with increasing reactivity. It's a loaded gun with the safety off. At 1:23 in the morning, the test begins. Within seconds, conditions in the core spiral out of control. The operators push the emergency shutdown button, AZ5, which should insert all control rods fully and shut the reactor down. But the tips of these rods have graphite displacers. In the first moments of insertion, they actually increase reactivity in the lower part of the core. In a reactor already on the edge, this is the spark in a room full of gasoline. The power surges violently. There is a huge steam explosion, blowing the 1,000-ton reactor lid upward, rupturing pipes and destroying the core. Moments later, another explosion follows, likely a chemical or hydrogen explosion. The reactor building's roof is shattered. Pieces of fuel, graphite, and structural material are thrown into the air. The core is now exposed to the open sky. Burning graphite and superheated materials begin to spew radioactive particles into the atmosphere. From the nearby town, some residents see a strange blue glow above the plant, an eerie column of light, possibly from ionized air in the intense radiation field. Many think it looks beautiful, like a strange aurora. They have no idea that they are watching one of the most dangerous events in modern industrial history. 2 people died that night as a direct result of the explosion and injuries. In the days and weeks that follow, many of the firemen and plant workers who rushed toward the reactor building without proper protection will succumb to acute radiation sickness. Inside the control room and on the site, chaos reigns. But in Pripyat, just a few kilometers away, most people are still sleeping. The most haunting part of the story is not just the explosion, it's what happened after. When dawn breaks over Pripyat on April 26th, there is no official warning, no sirens, no immediate evacuation. People wake up, get ready for the day, go shopping, go fishing, walk their kids, sweep their balconies. From many places in the city, you can see the plant and a column of smoke rising from Unit 4. Some residents notice small glittering particles falling from the sky. They look like snow or ash. Children play outside in sandboxes. Some climb on roofs to get a better look at the fire. All the while, the invisible enemy, ionizing radiation, is flooding the area. At the plant, fire brigades are working desperately to put out the fires on the roofs and around the reactor building. Many of them have no idea what doses they are receiving. Some are called to what they believe is a normal industrial fire, with no mention of reactor accident. In the city, radiation levels spike far above safe limits. But information travels slowly, and what information does exist is filtered through layers of bureaucracy and secrecy. It will take about 36 hours before the authorities finally decide to evacuate Pripyat. On April 27, 1986, loudspeakers and vehicles equipped with megaphones begin to broadcast an announcement throughout Pripyat. It says something like this: due to an accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, an unfavorable radiation situation has developed in the city of Pripyat. In order to ensure complete safety, it is necessary to temporarily evacuate the city's residents to nearby districts. Take only the most necessary items, documents, some clothing, and food. You will be away for approximately 3 days. 3 days, that's what people are told. Try to imagine this moment. You hear there's been an accident, but you're told it's temporary. You grab your passport, some clothes, maybe your child's favorite toy, lock your apartment, take your keys and go downstairs. Buses are lined up as far as the eye can see. Families climb aboard, some joking, some anxious, but almost no one believing they are leaving their homes forever. Pets are left behind. Plants, photo albums, furniture, everything that doesn't fit in a small bag. One woman later recalls, "I left the tea kettle on the stove. My mother said, 'We'll drink the tea when we come back.' We never came back." Around 45 to 50,000 inhabitants of Pripyat are evacuated in a single day. In the following days and weeks, the evacuation radius is expanded. Villages, farms, and smaller towns within a 30-kilometer zone around the plant are emptied. In total, more than 100,000 people are permanently displaced in the initial phase. And this is the moment when Pripyat begins its life as a dead city. From one day to the next, human time stops. Everything remains, but everyone is gone. If you walk through Pripyat today, you feel something that's very hard to capture in words. It's not just fear or curiosity. It's a heavy sense of interrupted life. Street signs still carry names like Prospect Lenina and Kurchatov Street. On balconies, you can still see old antennas, broken flower pots, the skeletons of clotheslines. Inside apartments in some buildings, the remains of everyday life are still visible. Cups and plates on tables, clothes in closets, personal letters, children's drawings on the walls. Of course, in the decades since the disaster, looters and souvenir hunters have taken many things away, and time has destroyed others. But the general feeling remains. It looks like people left in a hurry, intending to come back. The schools are perhaps the most emotional places. Classrooms with overturned desks, textbooks scattered across the floor, faded educational posters, and alphabet charts still hanging on the walls. You might see a small shoe lying in the dust, a doll missing an arm, or an exercise book with handwriting from 1986. In some buildings, there are piles of gas masks. Many of these were stored as civil defense equipment. Later, they were moved, rearranged, or staged by visitors and guides. But the image is powerful, a sea of rubber masks, empty eye holes staring up from the floor. The azure swimming pool is one of Pripyat's icons. Empty now, its blue tiles cracked, diving platforms rusted, large windows shattered. Once a place of laughter and splashing water, now it's a silent echo chamber of dripping ceilings and wind. Then there's the Avonhard Stadium, bleachers overrun by grass and trees. The sports field is no longer a place for football matches. It's another piece of reclaimed forest. And of course, the most famous symbol of all, the Pripyat amusement park, the Ferris wheel, painted yellow, towering over an empty square. The bumper cars frozen in place, their frames rusting away. The park's official opening was scheduled for May 1st, 1986, just a few days after the disaster. Some stories claim it was opened briefly to distract people before evacuation, but whether that actually happened is still debated. What we do know is that the rides were never used the way they were intended. The Ferris wheel stands today as a monument, not to fun, but to a stolen future. As you move through the city, nature is everywhere. Trees grow through concrete, roots crack asphalt, birds nest in stairwells. Pripyat is both a ruin and a forest at the same time. Radiation levels in the city today vary. In many places, short visits are considered relatively safe. The doses you receive during a guided tour are comparable to or lower than some medical procedures or airplane flights. But there are still hot spots, patches of soil, moss, or debris where the contamination is much higher. You can't see it. You can only hear it as Geiger counters begin to click faster when you approach certain areas. That's what makes Pripyat part of the dead zone. Not just the absence of people, but the presence of a risk you cannot sense on your own. Just a few kilometers from the plant lies one of the most contaminated places on Earth, the Red Forest. After the explosion, a massive radioactive cloud passed over the pine forest near the plant. The trees absorbed enormous doses of radiation within hours and days. Their needles turned from green to reddish-brown, then to a sickly yellow. From above, the forest looked as if it had been set on fire without flames. That's why it became known as the Red Forest. Many of the worst affected trees were later cut down and buried in trenches, then covered with sand and soil. But the radionuclides, cesium, strontium, plutonium, remained in the ground, in the roots, in buried wood, and in dust particles. Even today, radiation levels in parts of the Red Forest can be dozens or hundreds of times higher than in surrounding areas. For a short visit on a controlled route, that might be acceptable, but for long-term exposure, it would be dangerous. And yet, if you look at the Red Forest today, you might be surprised. It's green, dense, full of life. Wolves, foxes, deer, wild boar, lynx, and even reintroduced Przewalski's horses roam the exclusion zone. Birds nest in the trees. In some ways, the area functions like a giant, unintended wildlife reserve, simply because humans are largely absent. But that doesn't mean everything is fine. Biologists have found signs of stress and damage in certain species, higher mutation rates, tumors, shortened lifespans in some organisms. Other species seem more resilient, adapting to the conditions or simply expanding into the niche left by humans. The Red Forest is both a symbol of nature's incredible ability to reclaim space and a living laboratory for the long-term effects of radiation on ecosystems. When the wind moves through those trees, it's a reminder. Even if we walk away, our mistakes remain rooted in the soil for generations. We cannot talk about Chernobyl without talking about the liquidators. Liquidator was the Soviet term for the hundreds of thousands of people, soldiers, firefighters, engineers, miners, construction workers, who were mobilized to contain the consequences of the disaster. Estimates vary, but up to 500,000 people may have been involved in these operations over several years. In the first days, helicopters flew repeatedly over the burning reactor, dropping sand, boron, clay, and other materials in an attempt to smother the fire and absorb neutrons. Robots and remote-controlled machines were sent to clear extremely radioactive debris from the roofs of neighboring buildings. But in many places, the radiation levels were so high that electronics failed within minutes. So the Soviet authorities turned to what they called biorobots, human beings. Soldiers and workers were sent onto the roof of the reactor building for shifts of just 40 to 90 seconds. In that short time, they had to shovel pieces of highly radioactive graphite and fuel back into the ruined reactor or off the roof, then run back down. Some were given lead aprons, others very basic protection. Many had no clear understanding of the actual doses they were taking. The idea was brutal but simple. Spread the dose among many people so that no single person would receive the very highest exposures, at least in theory. Over the following months, a huge concrete and steel structure, often called the sarcophagus or shelter, was built around the remains of Unit 4. It was constructed quickly, under dangerous conditions, And it was never meant to be a permanent solution. It was a giant bandage over a burning wound. Inside the destroyed core, melted fuel, and structural materials formed a complex, still poorly understood mixture known as fuel-containing materials. These would continue to pose a danger for decades. Decades later, between 2010 and 2016, a new structure was built. The new safe confinement, a colossal steel arch that was slid over the old sarcophagus. Its job is to prevent further releases of radioactive dust and to create a safe environment to eventually dismantle the old shelter and manage the remaining fuel materials. The liquidators paid a heavy price. Many died from radiation-related illnesses. Others suffered chronic health problems. Their images remain as the human faces behind the cold numbers of megabecquerels and sieverts. Without them, the consequences of Chernobyl could have been even worse, spreading more contamination over larger parts of Europe. So what is Chernobyl today? Before the recent war in Ukraine and changing security situations, Chernobyl and the surrounding exclusion zone became a destination for dark tourism. Each year, thousands of visitors would take buses from Kyiv for day trips into the zone, following approved routes. They'd stand in front of the reactor, now covered by the new safe confinement. They'd visit abandoned villages. They'd walk through the streets of Pripyat, take photos in front of the Ferris wheel, step carefully through the school hallways. Guides would explain where it was safe to walk and where it wasn't. They'd hold up Geiger counters to show how radiation levels change from spot to spot. A patch of moss that clicks wildly, then a concrete slab that is relatively calm. For some visitors, it's a thrill. For others, it's a pilgrimage. For many, it raises more questions than answers. The area has also become surrounded by myths, rumors, and exaggerations. Stories of mutants, haunted buildings, supernatural phenomena, and curses. But the real ghosts of Chernobyl are not monsters or shadows in the dark. They are the normal lives that were interrupted. When we say voices from the dead zone, we're not necessarily talking about literal recordings. We're talking about the stories that echo through the objects left behind. The coat hanging on a hook that no one returned to wear. The photograph of a birthday party in a dusty frame. The math exercise book on a desk with a child's handwriting. The pram left in a hallway. You can also hear the voices and the testimonies of those who were evacuated. We were told we'd be back in 3 days. It's been decades. Our dog ran after the bus until it couldn't keep up. We never saw it again. Years later, seeing photos of our old apartment, frozen in time, hurt more than leaving it that day. Chernobyl is also a powerful reference point in the global debate on nuclear energy. It shows what can happen when flawed reactor designs, poor safety culture, and secrecy collide. It reminds us that technology alone is never enough without transparency, accountability, and respect for risk. At the same time, not all nuclear power is Chernobyl. Modern reactors, different designs, and stricter regulations have changed the landscape. But the lesson of Chernobyl remains. If you cut corners on safety, the bill is not paid by the company alone. It is paid by entire communities and ecosystems. What will happen to Pripyat and the Chernobyl exclusion zone in the future? In human terms, the timeline is almost unimaginable. Some areas will remain unsafe for settlement for hundreds, even thousands of years, depending on the isotopes involved. Other parts will slowly return to levels where long-term habitation might be possible in theory. But even if people never move back, scientists will keep studying the zone as a unique case, a massive, real-world experiment in long-term radiation effects, a controlled environment for observing how nature reacts when humans vanish. For some, The idea of keeping Chernobyl as a kind of memorial landscape is important. A place where future generations can physically see what happens when safety fails. For others, it's simply home they lost and can never truly recover. As we end this journey through the dead zone, let's come back to the beginning. Chernobyl is not just about a reactor. It's about people. Children who never returned to their bedrooms. Workers who never clocked out of their last shift. Families whose photo albums stayed behind in a city that became too dangerous to live in. If you've watched this far, Chernobyl is no longer just a word or a date to you. It's a city of empty rooms, a silent amusement park, an unnaturally quiet forest, and the echo of thousands of lives cut short or diverted forever. This was the Chernobyl disaster, Voices from the Dead Zone. If this story resonated with you, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is the biggest lesson we should take from Chernobyl? Is it a warning about nuclear technology itself, or about how we manage risk, information, and responsibility? Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, and remember, some cities disappear from maps, but their stories stay with us as long as we choose to listen.